What is going on, guys? It is your boy Ollie Footy. What a day of World Cup action. I mean, banger after banger after banger. We even got an upset in there. We looked like we were going to get an upset at first. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. But before we begin, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. Follow me on all the social platforms. Look in the description. You can follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. You know where to find me. Obviously, you got to subscribe to me on YouTube as well. But now that that's out of the way, let's start with Brazil and Japan, the first match of the day. Arguably, you could say this was the worst match of the day in terms of this match was the only one that didn't go to penalties. This one maybe had the least drama, but it was still drama filled, man. Absolute banger of a match. First half, Brazil come out very flat, man. Casemiro was having a howler of a game. Danilo was getting done up. I mean, that Brazilian midfield felt a little bit lost. Bruno G was great the entire game, but it was him and him dragging the likes of Paquetá and Casemiro along with him. The Brazilian attack took a while to get going. Eventually they did, obviously, but man, Japan, they stayed compact. They hit Brazil on the counter. It was a bad misplaced pass, I think, by Casemiro. And then from there, or no, it was a bad misplaced pass by Danilo. Casemiro cannot, recover in time. And from there, Sano hits a crazy shot. Gabriel just couldn't deflect it. He was, just a little bit too early to deflect it. And it goes in the bottom left corner. Allison had no chance. And it looked like Brazil might be on the ropes. Japan might get a huge upset. And it's funny with Japan because they've kind of been in these situations before, right? You can think of with Croatia last World Cup where they were this close to qualifying, but man, in the end, that second half, Brazil, as soon as they came out of the second half, they were on go mode. Relentless attack after attack. Japan had no escape. It was like, oh my, it was just a loop. It was a loop, man. An endless loop. Just Brazil attacking and attacking, setting it to whether it was Vinny, I think Endrick came in at halftime, or Ryan, whoever it was, they said, all right, we go again. If we don't get it, we go again. We go again. We go again. And then eventually, ball comes to Gabriel. Of all people, Gabriel. But Japan's in a low block. Her center backs are high. Ball comes to Gabriel. With that left foot, sends in a great cross. And who else on the end of it, except for the man who had the worst game up to that point, Casemiro, heads it in. But we know Casemiro has been there before, obviously with Real Madrid. He was there when Brazil won the Copa America. He's been there before, and he's there again for Brazil to level it. But then it's still looking tight, man. Japan's such a solid team. I was saying this in my predictions. Japan can make it tight versus anyone. But I thought at the end, Brazil just had too much talent, and eventually the talent always wins out. 95th minute. I think there was only 6 minutes of stoppage time. So 95 out of 96 minutes. It is still 1-1. Brazil are pushing and pushing and pushing. And some way, somehow, the ball finds Martinelli in between the center back and the fullback in the penalty box. And Martinelli, just with a deft touch, strikes the ball off the post. Zion Suzuki had no chance, unfortunately, and he had an incredible game. Probably Japan's man of the match. Goes off the post, rolls in, and Brazil win 2-1. Absolutely incredible comeback for Brazil. And we got to give props, man. We got to give props to Brazil because it was tough, man. And, especially recently, Brazil has just been so underwhelming, right? They went out to Uruguay in the Copa America. And then really since they lost to Croatia in that quarterfinal round in the World Cup 4 years ago, it's really just been a tough time for Brazil and the national team not getting the results they want. And look, maybe a prior Brazil, a past version of Brazil, does a lot better versus this Japanese team. However, at the end of the day, more goals doesn't get you further in the tournament, right? You can't, winning 4-1 doesn't mean you go an extra round. You just got to qualify. And that's what Brazil did. And we got to shout out, to me, my man of the match, Vinicius Jr., was absolutely incredible. When it seemed like that attack wasn't, firing at first, I'm not talking about him because the dribbles he had, man, he had an almost mythical goal today. But Zion Suzuki is absolutely incredible in that goal and just made a great save. And speaking of another man of the match, Suzuki was absolutely incredible for Japan, made tons and tons of great saves. Unfortunately, couldn't make enough to qualify, but man, we got to give him some props too because he was incredible. And for me, I think the way this game was won was obviously down to Brazil individual talent making the difference. Okay, because Japan, they come out, they're basically five at the back, right? It's a three at the back, but they got the wing backs. And when they're in that low block, it's definitely a five. So they're in this five at the back. And after they score, especially, they're just holding on to this lead. And maybe that's where they went wrong. Maybe they went too conservative. Moriyasu, subbing out some guys and bringing in some more defensive minded people in. And maybe if Japan was braver, we might be talking about a different result here. However, since Japan went that route, you obviously let Brazil be the protagonist in the game, have the ball, and see if they can do something versus your defense. And from there, it's like, okay, well, can you defend or can you not defend? You know what I mean? Are you Inter 2010 or are you not? And Japan are obviously not. Look, Japan did a fantastic job, a valiant effort, and honestly, this game probably goes to extra time and maybe goes to pens, and then who knows? We could be talking about a whole different thing here. So I don't want to say that Japan did the wrong move by going conservative and just playing that low block, knowing you don't have the talent to go, blow for blow with Brazil. However, when you do that, you allow Brazil to really get in the game, to just throw everything at you, and eventually they end up scoring. So yeah, for Brazil, I think it's a well-deserved win. You know, at the end of the day, talent, talent above all. And this Brazilian team still has a lot of talent, regardless of how underwhelming some of their results have been over the last 2, 3 years. You still have one of the best left wingers in the world, one of the best young talents in the world with Ryan and Endrick. You still have a great midfielder in Bruno Guimaraes, great center back duo, Marquinhos and Gabriel. I mean, there's so much talent. Arguably the best keeper in the world in Allison. So, look, Brazil, it was tough, but they got back into it. And now they're on to the round of 16 versus the winner of Norway and Ivory Coast. And man, that game is going to be fun. For Japan, this is unfortunately the end. And look, like I said, they tried. They went with the conservative. They went with the low block. Maeda was absolutely incredible today as far as his out of possession work. Right. Same with Kamada. But at the end of the day, you lost to Brazil. I don't think anyone's going to be ashamed with that. So shout out to Japan. They made it this far, but unfortunately, you ran into Brazil. It is what it is. It's a terrible draw, man. It's a terrible draw. You get Brazil round of 32. That's tough, but it is what it is, man. This is the World Cup after all. So shout out to Japan. Brazil on to the next round. What a great game.